These legendary summons are one of the defining parts of Final Fantasy, so today I'm picking my favourite summon from every game in the main series, with a few honourable mentions along the way.
Stay away from the summoner!
This isn't an objective ranking, it's based on the designs, their lore, how you unlock them, how satisfying they are to use, and pure nostalgia. So let's get started in absolutely no particular order.
Play it back.
Final Fantasy XI was an MMORPG, but it had one of the most rewarding summon systems in the series with the Summoner job. Little backstory: to unlock Summoner, you first had to find Carbuncle's Ruby, which had a chance of dropping from Leech-type enemies, but that was only the beginning. Once you had the Ruby, you had to travel across the world and experience 7 different weather effects to charge it. It was an awesome personal journey and it felt really rewarding. Whenever someone unlocked Summoner for the first time, the game would create a rainbow in the sky for everyone nearby to see. Everyone would see your achievement. It was so cool, and that's what MMO should be about. Once you became a summoner, you could venture out and battle trial versions of the avatars to unlock them for yourself. Ifrit, Garuda, Titan, Leviathan, Shiva and Ramu could all be challenged. And if you managed to defeat their higher level versions as a group, you could eventually take on and unlock the dark summon Fenrir. More avatars were added over time, including Diabolos, who could unleash these badass nether blasts. So my absolute favourite summon might be surprising. It's Carbuncle. He might be one of the smaller avatars, but I have so many memories using Carbuncle during the early game, and later on with the right equipment, including Carbuncle's mitts, you could actually make him completely free to summon and sustain. Normally, avatars drain your MP while they remain active, so having a free Carbuncle was incredibly useful. This little guy has stuck with me through thick and thin. Carby saved my life so many times in Final Fantasy XI, and that's why he's my favourite.
There he goes again!
Final Fantasy X is great for summons. I mean, we're on Eunice pilgrimage as a summoner. For honourable mentions, Shiva has really grown on me over time. I love her more unique design here with the dreadlocks, and did you know, this is the first game where she snaps those icy fingers for her diamond dust. I also really like Bahamut here. He genuinely feels like a Dragon King, he's got this intimidating presence, and he just seethes with arrogance whenever he's on screen. And I've got to give a shout out to Yojimbo. Thing is, one of my favourite bits of Final Fantasy is unlocking new summons through side content, and Yojimbo feels really unique in that regard. I love that you have to negotiate with him to join your party, and even in battle you have to pay him to fight.
You serious?
It makes him feel completely different from every other summon. Then there's his Zanmato, which can even one-shot the toughest super bosses in the game.
What?
So what's my favourite in Final Fantasy X? I'm gonna say Anima. A secret summon created when Seymour's mother sacrificed her life and soul. She looks and sounds like she's constantly suffering and sharing her pain as her power.
What a pity.
I love her dark, grotesque design. There's also something really tragic about her, like she's full of regret, chained up and a tortured soul. While she sacrificed herself to become a final Aeon so her son could defeat Sin, Seymour uses Anima for his own corrupt ends instead. It feels bad. Unlike most summons, Anima is unique to Final Fantasy X because of her origin, although she later returns in a different form in 14, this time made from the corpse of the Emperor.
Huh?
Before we get into Final Fantasy XIV, quick pause. If you love RPGs, consider subscribing to Bytes or giving the video a like. I'm a bit of an indie game developer who covers RPGs, and I'm replaying the whole Final Fantasy series while ranking them. Thank you.
Carry on.
There's actually not that many things you can summon in Final Fantasy XIV. For many, many years, summoners would start with Carbuncle, then mainly use Edgies. These little baby avatars are the iconic summons.
That is the way of it, I fear.
Nowadays though, you can summon the real deal as part of your rotation. Yeah, I was tempted to pick Bahamut. I've got loads of memories raiding the binding coils of Bahamut, and taking on the Elder Primal himself as a raid team was gnarly.
Go, keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going! Yes!
But my absolute favourite in 14? Phoenix. Because towards the end of the Binding Coil you fight the remnants of Phoenix, and we discover that Louis Soir sacrificed himself to become the Phoenix, all in a last desperate attempt to save Eorzea from Bahamut during the Calamity.
What?
You finally get to see what really happened leading into A Realm Reborn through this incredible extended cinematic, Flames of Truth. It was such a cool reward for people who put in the effort to conquer the game's hardest raids at the time. Eventually, summoners learned to summon the power of Phoenix, and it's just really cool to me. Phoenix was ultimately this world's salvation, and in a way, Phoenix represents the rebirth of Final Fantasy XIV itself. The original game was given a second chance and rose from the ashes into a realm reborn, and became an incredible success, so thank you, Phoenix.
For we are by fire reborn!
Next, it's genuinely difficult choosing just one from Final Fantasy VIII. The Guardian Force system is absolutely fantastic. I love not only the designs here, but how every summon is unlocked. I love Cactar, he's cute, but what makes him special is how awesome it is to unlock him. You have to track down the Jumbo Cactar on the desert island. It's just so animated, it's so cool. Alexander looks incredible. It almost has this Sorceress Adia inspired design, which makes perfect sense considering you draw it from her. Odin is badass too, and completely blew me away the first time I saw him go up against Cypher. You straight up lose your summon and Gilgamesh takes his place, but it's sick as hell. Ifrit was very close to being my favourite. Across the series I find Ifrit can sometimes lean too far into either being too human or too beast-like. I love his design, his roar, and there's just something incredibly nostalgic about heading into the Fire Cavern, battling Ifrit and adding him to your Guardian Force roster. Right, loads of amazing stuff, but what's my favourite in 8? It's a newcomer, Diabolos. I love everything about him, his dark demonic design, his summon sequence, and the atmosphere of his shadow purpley realm. Even the way you unlock him is awesome. You have to use the magical lamp from Sid to challenge him, and you have to turn his own demi-magic against him. It's probably the best use of the draw system in the entire game. It's just badass how he descends into the fight, flapping the darkness off his wings. And it almost feels like he's struggling under the weight of his own gravity-distorting attack. Completely sick as hell, and the perfect example of Final Fantasy VIII's incredible summon design. So Final Fantasy 1 and 2 are the only games in the main series where you can't actually summon, so they're void. That said, I'd give a shout out to Bahamut in the first game. He's not a summon yet, but he does upgrade your character's jobs, which is honestly pretty nice of him. And in Final Fantasy 2, Leviathan makes an appearance in a very different way. Instead of summoning him, your ship gets swallowed whole, and you have to navigate through his insides like a dungeon. A pretty memorable way to introduce Leviathan early on. Final Fantasy XII is a really interesting one to talk about. It completely abandons the traditional summons in favour of these new Zodiac-based Espers, and I've come to really appreciate them because these are some seriously messed up and twisted takes on summons.
I like it better that way.
I'll always have a soft spot for the classic summons, but I love how dark and corrupted each and every one of them is here. And if you're curious, it's well worth diving into the lore through Final Fantasy XII's bestiary, because there's some genuinely crazy stories behind these Espers.
Remember what curiosity killed? Just a friendly word of advice.
I quite like Famfrit. He's a water-based Esper that's sealed within his own armour. And there's this really badass moment where he stretches out his chain as thunder strikes in the background. He drowns enemies, crushing them with the sheer weight of water, and his pot holds a lot more water than you'd think. I've also got a soft spot for Kuchulain. He's this totally sick, disgusting, poison-based Esper, but he's got this weirdly cheerful personality that makes him adorable in his own twisted way. Mateus is an ice-based Esper, and his lore is probably one of the darkest. He was corrupted by darkness and cowardly bound himself to an ice goddess, using her as a living shield. You can even see parts of her body incorporated into his design. But hands down, my favourite in 12 has got to be Zalera, the Death Seraph. He's clinging to this shamaness with his right arm, using her as a hostage. She screams as Zalera uses her to build up energy for his attack. His cheeky little undead laugh is so good. I love his undead design, I love how freaking evil he is, and I love his lore in the bestiary.
You're well informed.
Final Fantasy VII is where we got to see so many summons brought in a full 3D for the very first time. I still used Choco Mog in the early game after escaping Midgar. I love that there's a chance it'll summon the chunky fat chocobo to squash enemies. There's Bahamut, Neo Bahamut, and the strongest of them all, the colossal Bahamut Zero, who flies into orbit and nukes enemies from outer space with a Terra Flare. Neo Bahamut came really close to being my personal favourite. I think he's got a completely badass design. He just hovers, layering over your enemies, and his Giga Flare is gnarly, just obliterating things out of existence. I much prefer how flares are like these over-the-top energy beams or energy blasts compared to more modern enemies where sometimes they become lots of little magic missiles instead. And I don't think it has the same impact as a big beefy dragon blast.
Hot damn, we are good!
But what's my favourite in Final Fantasy VII? It has to go to Knights of the Round. This summon materia is hidden away at the edges of the map, requiring a golden chocobo to even reach the Round Island. It's the ultimate end, a lengthy summon sequence with all 12 Knights of the Round carving away and blowing up your enemies before the king makes the final devastating blow. It's iconic because of just how ridiculously over the top it was at the time. Nothing else even came close, and using Knights of the Round alongside some powerful materia combinations is how I finally defeated Ruby Weapon for the first time. That was a huge accomplishment for me back then.
Think you might have overdone it?
So Final Fantasy XVI put summons front and center. You don't really summon in the traditional sense, with dominance instead summoning the power of icons and transforming into them. 16's pretty unique like that. Ifrit is technically the only icon you can summon as the player, with the main character Clive being Ifrit's dominant, but as you defeat other dominants you absorb their icons' powers and gain access to their abilities in regular battles.
You don't say.
I really like 16's portrayal of Titan. The fight with Titan is an incredible series of set pieces. Love how it keeps escalating until it reaches completely ridiculous proportions. It's one of those moments where Final Fantasy goes all in on spectacle. Bahamut and Shiva are pretty cool too, and I like how Sid gets a frontline role here, being Ramuh's dominant.
Spoken truth.
Now, if it counts, my personal favourite would be Ifrit Risen. This is Ifrit and Phoenix merged together with these completely over-the-top fire effects and the kind of ridiculous spectacle that feels unique to Final Fantasy. There's this incredible moment where you fly into outer space to battle Bahamut, and it's just sick as hell. Gotta say, this fusion of summons was an awesome surprise for long-time Final Fantasy fans.
This game is over.
Final Fantasy III, it's special to me in the way that this is the first game that actually introduced summoning and the summoner job. This is where so many of the series' iconic summons began. Most summons could be purchased from magic shops, but some of the rarer ones had to be discovered for yourself. I love that. It gave you another reason to explore the world because the strongest summons had to be earned, not simply bought. Hidden beneath the sea is a secret path leading into Castle Saronia where you'll find Odin, and it's sick as hell slicing enemies in half with Zantetsuken. I think it's so cool that you can also spot Leviathan's shadow swimming around on the world map. Approach the lake and you'll find a hidden dungeon with Leviathan waiting at the end. Pretty awesome, crushing enemies with tsunamis. It's so badass that Final Fantasy III introduced the idea of earning your summons through optional side content. Secrets hidden away that you'd have to discover for yourself, and awesome challenges you'd have to overcome. It's an gnarly concept the series would keep building on, well, until the more modern Final Fantasy games abandoned the idea. But favourite in 3? It's an optional summon, good old Bahamut. So once you've obtained the invincible airship, you can fly over smaller mountains and reach Bahamut's lair. Just like Odin and Leviathan, you have to battle your way through the dungeon and defeat Bahamut to unlock him as a summon. There's just something so satisfying about unleashing Mega Flare for the first time in the series and watching Bahamut just delete your pixel enemies. It turns the summoner job into an absolute powerhouse, and it's the ultimate reward for exploring Final Fantasy III's world.
Now, let the fireworks begin!
Okay, Final Fantasy 15. I've got to say it's a little frustrating how few opportunities you actually get to use your summons here.
Then quit moping, keep hoping.
There's a pretty awesome story surrounding Ifrit this time, and you get to delve deeper through Arden's DLC, but I've got to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this Ifrit's design. He leans a little too heavily into his human side, like I mentioned earlier. I don't really like it when Ifrit goes too far in either direction, either becoming too human or too beast-like when he's running around on all fours. I prefer that balance between the two.
Yeah, I guess you have a point.
I quite like Ramuh in 15. He retains his more classic Final Fantasy look with a beard and staff, and it's kind of awesome seeing him at this enormous scale and really bring in the thunder. But what's my personal favourite in 15? It has to be Leviathan. Watching Leviathan emerge with the city of Alticia getting torn apart is visually just incredible. You eventually get the ability to summon Leviathan yourself, but like I said, how the summon system functions is a bit of a letdown in 15. During my recent replay, I didn't even get the chance to summon her once. That said, if you're lucky enough, summoning Leviathan out in the open world is awesome. The sense of scale is completely badass.
I like it.
Okay, with Final Fantasy VI, there's a huge selection of espers to find. For me, one of the more memorable summons was Bahamut, mainly because of how you acquire him. It dropped from this death gaze that would randomly hide somewhere across the skies, and you'd have to fly the airship around the world map until you just so happened to collide with a tiny tower where he was hiding. The worst part is that he was completely invisible, so it was basically a blind hunt across the entire world. But now, thank God, they've made him visible in the Pixel remasters. I also really like how the Phoenix Esper is tied into Locke's story. He spends the later game searching for a way to bring back his love, Rachel, and he's looking for the legendary Phoenix. Favourite in 6 though? It's one thematic to 6, Crusader. It's the ultimate summon with 3 espers appearing to completely decimate your enemies in over-the-top style. Representing a fragment of the Warring Triad's strength, they even friendly fire your own party. It's a journey unlocking Crusader. You need to defeat the 8 legendary dragons, some of the toughest optional bosses hidden throughout the endgame. It's such an incredible reward, and I love the Warring Triad's designs in Final Fantasy VI, so even getting a smaller fragment of their power feels sick as hell. Final Fantasy IX has a really solid selection of summons. There were 2 that came really close to being my favourite. First, I absolutely love Bahamut's design here again. It might actually be my favourite version across the entire series. His summon animation is incredible, and his role in the story makes him a complete badass here. The other is Arc, one of the more unique summons in the series. Arc's summon animation is ridiculously over the top. He starts out looking like an airship before transforming into a giant mech that completely obliterates your enemies. But those 2 only just missed out. My personal favourite has to be Madeen. For most of the game, Madeen quietly watches over Aiko in the form of Mog. Then, when Aiko is captured, there's this brilliant moment where Mog awakens into their true form as Madeen to protect her. I love the story behind Madeen, she's got a badass design, and I think the summon animation is absolutely stellar. Right, Final Fantasy IV. I will say they're a little more animated thanks to the jump to the Super Nintendo, but what I think is really interesting about 4 are the optional monster summons that have a chance of dropping from regular enemies. You can unlock Goblin, Bomb, Cockatrice, and Mind Flayer this way. They're not the most exciting summons in the series, but monster summons is something that only 4 really experimented with at this level. But what's my favourite in 4? I'm going to throw Asura a bone. You earn her by defeating her in the Cave of Summons, and I love how her ability reflects her design. Because Asura has 3 faces, she'll randomly cast one of 3 different spells on your party each time she's summoned. It's a really neat bit of gameplay that ties directly into her mythology.
Damn.
Final Fantasy XIII has a completely crazy take on summons.
That's for damn sure.
They're a bit mech-like and can transform into vehicles. Shiva transforms into a motorbike and Snow almost sits on her face. You've got to respect just how crazy and bizarre the summons are here. Brynhilda transforms into an actual racing car.
Eidolons, start your engines!
Sadly, there's no unlockable extra summons here, but my personal favourite has to be Odin. I know it's a little strange that Odin transforms into Sleipnir, his own horse from mythology, but I just think he's clean and he's got the most badass presence.
Attaboy.
Okay, Final Fantasy V, another solid selection of classics, while also introducing a few newcomers. Carbuncle makes its first appearance here, acting as more of a utility-based summon that casts Reflect on the entire party. It's also cool that Faris' companion, Sildra the Hydra, eventually becomes a summon. It's something completely unique to Final Fantasy V, and tying a summon directly into a character's story makes it feel a bit more meaningful. But my favourite summon in 5 has got to be the Phoenix. This is the first proper appearance of Phoenix as a summon in the series, not counting the 3D remake of Final Fantasy IV. To unlock it, you'll need to complete the 30-floored Phoenix Tower. It looks completely sick, scorching the battlefield with flames, but the real reason I love Phoenix is its utility. It can revive a single party member of your choosing, while also fully restoring their HP and MP. More modern versions of Phoenix usually revive the entire party, but I actually prefer the way it works here. Okay, that's my favourite summon picked in all 16 mainline games. Yes, technically you can't summon in Final Fantasy 1 or 2, but the summons themselves do appear for an honourable mention. But which summon is my absolute favourite? Well, easy, the Goblin summon. Alright, next I'll be revisiting an RPG that's personal to me, Dark Cloud. In the meanwhile, check out my thoughts after returning to the original Final Fantasy 1, or my thoughts after revisiting Dragon Age 2, which I found a new appreciation for. Have a good one.